All right, guys. Rob Dione here from Open Sky Fitness. I've got Will Irish on the line right now, and Will and I are going to talk a little bit about what his experience was like as I guess one of my clients, one of my coaching clients. Will, can you tell everybody how we met? Do you remember how we met
Uh,
originally the first time?
y- yeah, I know we had a common friend. Actually, it was a friend of a friend, and they introduced the two of us real quickly. Just doing some of my business and marketing and consulting, and you were doing some personal training, and I needed some of that. And I think we met for a couple times, and then a year went by,
That's right. That's right. We didn't
like
we
an
didn't talk for a
entire
year.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like an entire year went by, and I went about my normal routine, and I finally decided to reconnect with you. So yeah, we met through a mutual friend, I
So
think it was.
what was the impetus? What was happening in your life that you felt like you needed to reach out to me?
Yeah, so it, to be honest with you, it was like a last straw. First thing I did, I remembered you because you had made an impact. I listened to your podcast, and I knew that you knew your stuff just from our few conversations a year before, and I I was my I was 347 pounds. And why I reached out to you, I mean, very frankly, was I was getting pretty scared about where I was because I was working nonstop and I was, sitting all day. And I have three little girls and a wife and some family history. So I was scared. So I knew I needed to do something. And I think the first thing I did is I remembered your name. I found your site and I bought you like PDF, like your little home workout, thinking that was going to do it for me. So that didn't do much except remind me I need just to see how you're doing. And that's what caused me to reach out to you.
So tell us a little bit about like what your life is like, because everybody's, we all have our own lifestyle that we think is so unique, and we don't, and when we talk, when we think about getting healthy, it never feels like our life is the same as anybody else's, and that our life is so unbelievably crazy or busy. What was your life like? Give an idea, because you had a pretty damn full schedule.
I was positive you weren't going to understand just how busy I was, and I am. I still feel that way. But yeah, I have so many responsibilities. But like I said, I have an amazing wife who stays at home with the three girls, and I have an office out back, so I don't have this long commute. And this is my man cave out here, and I get a lot of work done, and I have a lot of responsibilities, and so literally. From 4:30, 5:30 in the morning, and many times I'll just work straight through the night, with little breaks for dinner and stuff like that. So there was no, let me put it this way. One of the reasons I was scared was I just didn't see a change coming my way. And
Mm.
um, I knew that I didn't have time to go to the gym. I mean, I live in the middle of nowhere in Virginia, and frankly, there was no chance I was going to go to the gym that's only 10 or 15 minutes away. But I just wasn't going to happen. I have too busy of a lifestyle,
Hmm.
and that was true. And I had a lot of pressures and responsibilities on me, and I couldn't give that up. So I kind of needed somebody that could understand that and then still help me. And that was what was really intriguing when we first chatted.
So, what was when you called me to get together? Because let's give people a kind of a scope of
All right.
what you worked on, right, and where you are, and kind of what that this kind of journey has been like for you. So, for you, you said you started out at 347 pounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
What did you get to, and how long did it take you to get there?
Right. So I've lost a total of. Well, I think the last update picture that I actually took because I ran out of my results sheets, but I took I took the last one was 54 pounds over the course of was a 3.5 4 months, 54 pounds, and that's how much I lost. So if you're asking me where I am, where I was, where I am,
Hmm.
that's where I am. But that wasn't even close to being a reality. I've got a long way to go, but I
Hmm.
I can't begin to tell you when I reached out to you that first time. Um, all I was really looking for was somebody to say it's going to be okay, and we'll figure this out. And you couldn't have talked me into the number I am at today. So
what was, you know, when we first got together, what was running through your mind? What did you think when we're like, okay, we're going to set this up, you and I are going to start talking, we're going to have our first official meeting. What did you think was going to happen? What did you think I was going to do to you?
Well, you're supposed to just say it's okay, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, all right, the fear drove me. I will tell you that, but I thought for sure, if you agreed to coaching me, I was going to be in the gym pumping iron next to people I wouldn't want to see my wife looking at me in comparison to. It was humiliating to me to think I'm going to be in the gym. I was actually afraid to go into a gym again. And back problems and, you know, injuries that I had, but I thought you'd definitely have me on exercise bikes and picking up weights and leg lifts. So that was my fear. Like day 2, I'm going to the gym 5 days a week. I'm drinking eggs in the morning, raw eggs, and eating green things all day long. And that's what was in my mind. And I knew that something had to change. And if I did even part of that, maybe I might move the needle. And so that was that. And that's the honest truth. I actually thought I'm going to the gym because I bought your PDF, man. I saw the workouts.
You went like full on Rocky style. You thought that we were going to go like hardcore from day one. You know, you're going to be out there like running the streets and hitting the gym and like crazy and nothing but raw eggs.
Raw eggs in the morning, chasing chickens. Yeah, the whole bit.
So your expectations were slightly off. from what we actually did. Why don't you tell us, tell me, and therefore everyone, whoever's listening to this or watching this, tell us what it was like. Like, did you feel like you got shot out of a cannon? Did you feel like you know, what was the experience like for you?
Oh, it was horrible. To be honest with you, it blew my mind the very first time, because I think, and maybe people watching this could understand this, but especially when you're talking about something as personal as your health, one of the big fears is that you're going to say too much and you're going to take away something that I'm not ready to do. And that might be going to the gym. That might be taking away certain foods. It might be whatever. And I think our first call when we talked about setting it up was really, you fostered an environment. 2 things stood out to me. One was you created a safe place to talk to you where there was no judging, right? Even when I started to give you a little bit more and a little bit more of the picture, there's no point did you like, whoa, you know, I was expecting you like to hit disconnect. Oh, bad storm in the area on my text or something. But not only did you absorb it, but little did I know you were trying to really understand my background. I know that now because I see how you coach. But back then, that first call was really instrumental because you allowed me to be as vulnerable as I was willing to be, and not push me to go further. And you took that and you started to develop a relationship of trust, which to this day I can say, as a certified coach myself in a different industry, of course, I have never seen on the planet, and it is really, really just amazing. So,
have you ever worked with obviously you've worked with coaches in the past. Have you ever worked with a coach on your health? And have you ever tried like dieting and such before?
I'm not even sure if I told you this, but up in Connecticut, I moved around a little bit, right? But in Connecticut, I was there. My wife was pregnant with our first daughter, and I was really out of shape. There was a gym right down the street, and I went to do the tour of this 24-hour gym. So I'm definitely going to go. And I went with my wife, and the guy who actually showed me around the gym was like one of the Biggest Loser contestants, Neil, somebody.
Really?
And yeah,
you never told me this.
I did, right?
Yeah.
And so he showed me around, and so he sold me because he was all slimmed up, and I remember watching him on the show, and I'm thinking, oh, this could be me, right? So then he talks me into signing up with a personal trainer, And so I had these one session a week personal training, and I hated every second of it. This guy just made me plank out and do these things. I was just not happy, and I would find any reason not to go. And this is how absolutely pathetic I am. I remember asking him if I could transfer my sessions to my pregnant wife because I was too busy with work to continue.
Really?
Yes, and because she loves exercise, and I'm like, I think I can get you some free sessions. And I weaseled out of my own contract with this personal trainer. So yeah, I say that in all reality is I just workouts weren't fun for me, man.
Yeah.
And I was afraid that's where you were going to take me.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I remember when you and I first got on the phone, and some of the stuff was, just kind of listening and absorbing and seeing where you were at emotionally, because when we talk about weight loss, it's not about numbers. It's not about the scale necessarily. That's a part of it. Obviously you want to see the scale go down, but psychologically there's a lot of baggage, especially if you've been dealing with being heavy for a good portion of your life. There's reasons why. There's lots of stuff that we needed to unpack. And there was a little bit of, what's the word? Like there was a little fear that was coming from you. Because and I don't know how deep you want to dive into this, because I know there's stuff, history in the family, things that that I know that you struggle with and have a fear about actually crossing those boundaries for yourself. Do you mind talking about that a little bit?
No, I don't. I think that was kind of the catalyst for reaching out to you, or the catalyst behind the fear, to be honest with you, because so I grew up in a great family, but yeah, I really just didn't have an education in health at all. Mm-hmm. And I became very independent at 18 and traveled and moved away and all that good stuff. But with my dad was my best friend. And when I say that, I mean, we had a really great relationship, and he worked 4 jobs, really just a great guy. And at age 49, he died in my arms as I was giving him CPR in the middle of the night. It was a very traumatic thing. It was the most helpless feeling in the world, that I carry haunting thoughts to my day, looking up the one time he's asking me for help, and I've got 911 on the phone. I'm trying to calm my mom down, and I'm giving my dad CPR, and I can't do anything. And by the time the ambulances got there, they, I don't mean to be graphic, but this is what drives fear, right? They did tracheotomies, and I'm feeling so helpless, and I'm watching my dad, 49 years old. And so he had a massive heart attack and he died. And that just shattered me and our family in so many emotional ways. So that was a huge blow. So he was 49. Now, context for everyone, I'm now 44, turned 44 in February. So I was 43 when I reached out to you. Yeah. And on the clock in the back of my mind, I had 6 years left, if I'm lucky, because my dad was healthier than I am, frankly. He had a busy lifestyle, and there was no mobile phones and computers. He was a fireman, so
he had to move around. Oh, he's a fireman, so he was juggling being a fireman as well as multiple other
4 jobs. Yeah, mm-hmm.
Got it.
So, and he wasn't as heavy as I was. He wasn't as tall. I mean, I'm a tall guy, but at the same time, he was a 6'1". He wasn't skinny by any means, but he wasn't as unhealthy as I was. But he died at 49, and we had no warning on that. Okay, and then 2 years ago on March 6th, my mom, who she's still here thankfully, but she had a massive heart attack, and I got a text message sitting here in this office. I'm on my way to the hospital. Tell your sisters, I can't say anymore. And she went dark on me. And I flipped out. I'm like, she lives on the other side of the state, and I'm like, what? I had 1.5 feet of snow here, and it was like she just went dark on me. And I'm like, tell my sister and brother what? Why is she going to the hospital? And that's all. And she disappeared off the radar, and she had a massive heart attack. And in speaking with her surgeon, he said that he almost lost her on the table twice, and
Wow.
they didn't expect her to pull through, and he had she suffered with it today. So anyway, I say that to share with you that I have some very unhealthy genes, and I also have some fears that make me believe that I only have a few years left, and that especially at that time, so cholesterol, your cholesterol number, your how heavy you are, the scale made a big difference to me.
Yeah, you know, when I remember you sharing that story with me, and I think you pretty much shared that fairly early, like either in the first or the second time we had talked, and I thanked you then, and I thank you now again for being so vulnerable and being so open about that, because I know that can be something that haunts someone, and they don't want to talk about it because it's just, they don't want to bring up that emotion, they don't want to bring up that fear, and it was really apparent to me, because you were so open about it, that you know, changing your lifestyle 100%, like on a dime, 180 degrees, wasn't going to be the solution for you. And I know that fear would have allowed you to do it. Like, you were expecting to get sent to the gym and be a gym rat because that's what you're supposed to do. You're expecting me to send you into the kitchen and eating sprouts and carrots, and that's it. And that's what you were supposed to do, and change your whole entire life. And I knew if we were going to really make an impact on you, that was not going to be the angle that I could take. If somebody came to me and they were like already super fit and they wanted to get even fitter, that would be one thing. But for somebody like you who's been really struggling to make that turn, it had to be slower. It had to be a turn that was going to be lasting. So, you know, going back, you were saying, tell everyone the conversation that we had, because I know that you remember how it went, because it was such a big thing for you, because you were expecting that I was going to tell you to hit the gym, and you expecting I was going to tell you to, you were going to have to give me all this time. How did that conversation go on your end?
Yeah. So first of all, we got to the end. We talked about what my day, you told me about these food journals that I should be keeping. Mm-hmm. And so you explained to me what it looks like to fill them out. And then we were getting that moment. I think I stalled you long enough, and I knew it was coming. Go to the gym, and you're like, all right, well, so what can you give me? I know you're busy. I hear it. I can tell. How much time can you carve out for me in a typical day? And I was sitting there, and I was like, I was thinking, should I tell him like an hour and a half, or, should I be, because I could carve that out if I had to, I suppose, but an hour and a half, maybe I should say an hour just to protect myself. And before I could say that, you actually said to me, how's 20 minutes? Do you think you can give me 20 minutes? And I was like, boom, dude, yeah, I can give you 20 minutes. 20 minutes at the gym, this is good. But before I even could say 20 minutes at the gym, you said, okay, 20 minutes. Well, that's good. So let's talk about taking a walk. 20 minutes, you live in a neighborhood, you can go out for a walk. Is that 20 minutes a walk a day? And I just remember that feeling of like, I could do this. This is nothing. 20 minutes a day, I could do this. This is not even an ask, right? If I really, this is going to change me, so that was a really big hurdle. Mm-hmm. Like, I came in with the expectations and you knew, and that's what makes, I really need people to hear from me throughout this, because we didn't script any of our conversation. But one thing that I want to make sure comes clear is your ability to dial into where I was, to draw me out, to hear and zone in, to say, let me help find how to motivate them. Instead of that coach who says, I say I can go 1 mile, and you say, now go 2, and you can do it. Because that's what we think of when, you only went 1 mile, you push yourself, go. All that CrossFit hardcore, and that's not all bad. I'm just saying that I wasn't ready for that. I just knew that was going to happen. And so when I got away with 20-minute walks per day, I felt like I was stealing the show. I was like, all right, gotta go, bye-bye. I was like ready to hang up our video chat and just make sure you didn't wrap it up. So that was one of my first assignments, was for that week. You said, let's share one thing. Let's do it. Let's 20-minute walk. Do it.
Give us an idea of what your walks were like prior to that conversation. Like how many steps? Because you had a Fitbit that you had been monitoring what you had been doing for months leading in. How much were you walking?
Well, I probably should share one of my favorite pastimes. I enjoy short walks to the refrigerator around midnight. No, in all honesty, I knew one of the things before I reached out to you, I could fix it myself before being told I had to go to the gym. So I got I have a Fitbit now, but I got a what was it called, Up 24, and I got this Up band that tells me how many steps. And this is really embarrassing to say, but because I have an office out back in my home here, and it's up against the woods, and in the house is where the bathrooms are and the family, I walked, and my steps were an average of, I think 742 was the average steps
per day,
and that's per day. And that's like getting up, and I wore it to bed. So getting up, the only time that thing came off was to shower every morning, and I put it first thing on because I want to get as many steps in. 742. So that's including bathroom breaks, and that's including going in at the end of the night and coming back out. And it's not exactly really close. And so I say that to share I really was sitting all day long, and I didn't know that until I took that number. And that was part of the fear factor to me. I'm like, this is not getting better. It's getting worse. Back when I was commuting, at least I'd whatever. So 702 steps. So 20-minute walk was a big difference for me, but it was something I could do,
Yeah. Well, I want to talk a little bit about the nutrition part of this as well, because we are talking, it's interesting because I'm looking at your food, your results sheet right here. I have it to the side here. And in week 1, you went from 442, because you were 447 when we started, when you contacted me, and you would
347.
347. What did I say?
447, but that's all right. I crushed it.
Yeah, right. So you were 347 when you called me, and then you had, by the time we started working together, you were 342-ish, right around there, 343. And then after week 1, you were 332. You almost lost, and that was just, and basically I'll tell people, it was keeping your food journal. The only things you had done, and I remember saying to you at the end of the conversation, it was keeping your food journal, it was drinking water, and it was taking your walks. Those were your only homework. That was your homework for week 1. You dropped 10 pounds in that week from just those changes.
And that's right, and that's true. And I wasn't, the reason I wasn't drinking water was because I didn't have time to go to the bathroom. And that, I know that sounds really pathetic to people that would watch this, but when you feel that work is so imposing on you, and you feel so much responsibility, you don't think rationally. And that's where you need someone else to speak into you. So I remember when you said to me, so how much water are you drinking per day? And I'm like, I'm going to have some tonight, I think, when I go in. And I literally hadn't drank any water. And so you said, all right, let's start getting your water up. And so you said, I think you wanted around 60 to 80 ounces a day. For me, that was about a 60 to 80 ounce increase per day. And then that was a food journal, which 3 days in a row, it's pretty easy to print out. We went through that. And you just told me, be really honest with me. And that's where I would really commend you, is because you allowed me I wasn't afraid to be honest with you. And in a way, I wanted to be honest to you because I haven't been that vulnerable with anybody. And I knew if you were going to fix me, which is what we all think, right? If you are going to fix me, you need to know what's really going on. And so I wanted you to see what's there. That those 3 things, 10 pounds, I think it was the first week. And I was pretty stoked on that. And I was,
Yeah, I was going to say, one of the things that I think I do with you quite often is create these analogies, so this way you can make sense of things. And it's almost like, so what you were doing is, if you didn't tell me how you were feeling, like if you weren't 100% honest, if you didn't let me look at your food journals and exactly everything that you were doing, it's almost like going to the mechanic, leaving your car around the corner and saying, look, I need you to fix my car, but let me tell you what's wrong with it. And the mechanic's like, why don't you just bring it in? He's like, no, I'm going to tell you what's wrong with it. And you just start making making all these sounds and all this stuff, and you're trying to describe it, but it's like, dude, you just got to let this guy look under the hood. And that's what you allowed me to do. You really did. You let me look under the hood and see what's really happening. And that came from your vulnerability. And that was, something that we have talked about in the past is there's a difference between these fitness apps, and not that they don't provide us with good information and stats, but there's a difference because they can't solve psychological problems. They can't even draw attention to psychological things that are coming up for you, reasons why we might be stalling or we might be getting in our own way. And that brings me to something that you've hit some roadblocks along this way. There's been some real struggles. I mean, not to mention your job, and sometimes you're off traveling for work. You disappear for a week or so, and you're just in meetings straight, which is, that's normal for somebody who works the kind of job that you work. You're like more of an at-home entrepreneur who also works for companies and does freelance stuff. But also when you were like just trying to keep your family together, that's a whole nother aspect of this, and you butt up against some real issues, and again, it's like that conversation about your dad, and I hope that you feel comfortable talking about it, but like you ran into some roadblocks along the way with the family. You had some stuff come up that kind of set you back a little bit, and I want you to talk about that struggle, what that was like feeling like you were alone through that process, and then kind of pulling out of that. It's almost like going into that dive where you're going into the smoke, and you don't know how far down you are. You kind of get lost in that. So can you talk about that? What was going on there?
Yeah, and if you'll allow me to, I'm gonna probably bookend it with an open and closed statement of this is really why I'm talking. Why I said I'm happy. I'm happy to talk to your crowd, because this coaching relationship made all the difference for me in the world. I mean, I had to want it, but this coaching relationship made all the difference in the way you were able to be 1,000% behind me. So when you say life gets in the way, I remember one of our first conversations, because I'm one of those guys that's really, I'm a metric guy. Mm-hmm. And so the scale number was a big deal to me. The cholesterol numbers, big deal. You know why? Yeah. All the background I gave you. So when I'm a metric guy and I'm seeing that, you said to me on our first or second meeting, and you've had to say it repetitively, is it's not always going to be like this. Life happens, and your body reacts differently, and you can't put all your stock in what a scale number says, and you're gonna. What, are you going to just bail because you don't like what it says? Right. And that's not even an indicator. You're just stepping on something that has pressure on it. So the point is that it has nothing to do with what's inside of you. It's just part of the journey, and you need to have that knowing in front. So I say that because when I got into this rhythm, and we got into a really good rhythm. I mean, when you walk out of the gate and you say, okay, 20-minute walks is where I started. I started with water. I had a rhythm. I got my food journals. I was happy to do them. You brought me to this point where I was actually so excited about what I was doing that you never took anything away from me. I always was trying to do a little bit more. I moved my walks into 1.5 miles, and then I decided, I remember on day one, I'll get to the hiccup in the road in a second, but day one, I literally said to you, Rob, I'm just going to be upfront about one thing. One thing I'm not willing to give up. Like, this is when I still thought I was going to the gym tomorrow or that day. Was you're not getting my coffee from me. I love my coffee and my International Delight Creamer. It tastes like Christmas. That's what I said to you. I remember saying that, and I was stoked about it. And I'm like, I don't care what. That's the one thing I won't give. If we cut everything else, I should lose a lot. So I did that. By week 2.5 or 3, working with you, Rob, I got angry at one of the scale numbers, and I didn't lose 10 pounds every week in the world, right? So we looked at the food journal like we always did, and one of the things that came out was... I'll
tell you what it was, because I'm looking at the... It was week 2 to week 3, you gained 0.6 pounds. You gained so angry. You didn't lose, because you were right there. It was like 10 pounds, 6 pounds, 4 pounds, and then it was just and then it was all of a sudden, it was no pounds lost. Wait, I gained 0.6 pounds? Almost like a little more than half a pound? You were pissed.
I couldn't handle that. That needle was going, and I was Brad Pitt by New Year's Eve. It's the way I thought of it, right? So I that really bothered me. And so that's when I think it really kicked into you that what does he know about nutrition? And that's where you kind of bring the full package there. You not only have that psychological coach that knows that's there for you, listens, but you also brought an element of education to where I needed to hear, as you said, that mechanic metaphor. The idea here was my coffee was the funny story. You were not going to get it, and you didn't, right? Mm-hmm. But you did something even sneakier. You said when we were reviewing, and I was so angry that week, it was either you or your wife did some calculation. You looked at the label on your own, and you found out that the International Delight, I didn't even know how much I poured. I just poured in the morning, I had to.
Yeah, I said to you, it's 6 grams per tablespoon that you put in.
How many are you putting in there?
How many tablespoons are you putting in? And you're just like, I don't know. I just pour it in.
And that I was trying to look for it on my phone. I found it and paused it. I wanted to show people this because this is real. This was November 18th, 2016. So when you look at this, the next morning, my takeaway was, hey, you always said you should just try to figure out how much you're putting in your coffee in the morning, right? Mm-hmm. And I had 2 of these a day, and I measured it out with tablespoons, not really thinking much, because how much was in the tablespoon?
6 grams.
Right, 6 grams. So 6 grams per sugar of sugar in there, and I was like, okay, so what's the big deal with 6 grams, right? So this is honestly what I sent you. I don't know if that's even going to come through on Skype, but I actually took a picture, and it says 12 tablespoons at 6 grams. It's 72 grams of sugar, and that was the coffee at 5 in the morning that you weren't getting from me. And when I saw that number, mm-hmm. you never once told me to stop doing that. I remember coming to you and saying, Rob, I cut half of that out. Mm-hmm. Literally half of that is gone because I think it was you or your wife that said, hey, it's like a Snickers bar for breakfast. But you never told me not to stop it. But instead, I changed it on my own because I realized that's a lot of sugar when you started educating me about what that does to you. So I wanted people to hear. I didn't mean to go into that story, but that was kind of funny because I actually put a roadblock there for you. I'm like, you're not getting it. And like 2 weeks later, literally, I'm cutting that in half. And I've never gone back to.
Well, it was amazing. I think the example that you're making shows how just having the knowledge of how certain foods affect you and how that affects your weight gain or your weight loss is powerful. It's a very powerful tool to have. And most people struggle with knowing what's healthy, what's not healthy, how it impacts you, because there's certain things. I remember I had a client in the past who was just every weekend he would just have a few beers, like 3 or 4 beers over the weekend, but he was eating really healthy throughout the week. Once that got cut down and he like changed it, or he started cutting out the booze, because booze is basically, it's just like another sugar. It was like boom, boom, boom. The weight just started falling off. And so sometimes it just takes discovering the little things that you're holding on to and so you didn't necessarily give that up. You didn't give up Christmas. You just cut, you just backed off a little bit.
I backed off on my own to a point where it didn't taste the same. Right. It tasted like Thanksgiving, maybe. I don't know. But the idea is I had half of it, and I didn't have an afternoon cup. That made a big difference. So where I was going with that entire story really was I hit this – we hit this stride because it really is a partnership, and that's where this coaching is so amazing, is the point that you had me – stoked to meet with you and send you my food journals and tell you where I'm at and give you the results. And I hit this groove, and I was just like, man, I'm going right through New Year's Eve. I went. I had great. I won't go into the stories, but the point is, I was so excited. I was making changes on my own. I was increasing my own walk. I increased my water. I was doing things I didn't want to typically do or would never do on my own if you asked me to. But you let me come to conclusions with the education behind it, and you couldn't break my stride. I was not going to fail. And that's when life hits. right? When you're not expecting it. And that's where you kind of started a half hour ago with your question. And, thanks for being patient. But
Yeah,
if people don't realize that, they wouldn't understand how hard this hit. So the reality is, I have three daughters, as you know, and were expecting our fourth baby and we had a big date set up here just a couple of months ago, and early May, and we brought the girls to the doctor's office to figure out the gender. It was week 20 for the ultrasound, and we had no idea, but we lost the baby, unfortunately, and it was just ridiculously caught. Talk about a wind blown. We had cake for the girls. It was a big day for us, and so we lost the baby. And I watched and within a matter of maybe 48 hours, because of my wife, what took place in her body at the time, and previous C-sections and things, pretty much told me that she had to be in the hospital in an operation, and there was a 60% chance for severe to fatal complications because of hemorrhaging, and they had these 3 teams who were going to all these teams of doctors. So I was gliding. I mean, weight was shedding. I was hitting my markers. I was hitting my streaks. I was on top of the world, and I was doing things. I was rocking. And then you lose a baby that you were expecting, and you're trying to help your wife through it. You're devastated yourself, and you're trying to help your kids who are really young, 6, 5, and 1, and 4 and 1. And this happened, and then to be told that you could lose your wife on Friday, and we had to go to many different hospitals, and in an instant, my heart, I just was grounded, and I went to, well, how would I ever? My wife is amazing, and the fact that I've got these 3 little girls, and I was supposed to be the strong one in this situation. My wife is the one going through all this turmoil. So yeah, man, life happens, and you said it to me on day 1, and I believed it. But when I was in my midstream glide, you couldn't steal my joy, and that hit me with a bat, dude. And we saw it, and that was devastating.
Yeah, and that's that was a tough. That I remember it was a very, very tough time for you, because it made maintaining this stuff, like your health, seem so kind of secondary, not important. You no longer became the important person, and it was kind of like this was a struggle. This was a spiraling for you. And I remember going, we were not having conversations on a weekly basis like we had normally been having. We weren't
texting.
We were texting, but we weren't like doing this where we would actually get look at each other face to face. And I remember talking to Devin about it, being like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to pull him out of this. He's really spiraling right now. And I remember at one point I just said, we have to get on the phone. You were I can't remember exactly what you said or something, and I was like, we need to get on the phone right now and have a conversation. I think we talked for almost 3 hours that night.
We did.
Yeah. We
did. And I remember thinking I remember just shutting you off because I wasn't eating right. This is the amazing thing I want your viewers to hear, if they hear anything from me, is that it's amazing how our minds work so irrationally. Like, I was on a natural high there as you could all hear. I was losing all that weight. Everything was going so good. But when life hits you and you don't have someone in your corner, like I have my wife in my corner, but in that situation specifically, I was really concerned for a lot of. By the way, she came through. God is good. She's great.
We should say that.
She's doing awesome.
Yeah.
And everything worked out great. And in terms of the operation, and it's still tragic. But the point is, when life dealt that to me, I had to just manage my family and my time, and my health didn't matter to me, like whatever. And I wasn't going on my walks. Whatever. I was texting you, like, you're always checking in with me. How you doing? You could understand why I didn't keep a food journal, but I was just eating whatever. And it just didn't even occur to me to think. It occurred. It just didn't make an impact. And yet you would think if you were having such a high moment that you would just want to get right back to that. But our minds don't work like that. And that, Rob, that is when you need a coach like you in your corner. And this is what I meant when I said I'll bookend it by saying you need somebody like you that is 10,000 times for you. Like you're not there for your fulfillment. You're there, you get fulfilled by watching somebody else reach their goal. And that's how it works. And your ability to draw me out. And so, yeah, I remember that conversation. I said, yeah, maybe next week, Rob, no problem. I was still trying to get back in a work swing. I was backed up there and still trying to manage, covering for my wife and all of that stuff. And then finally you said, how are you doing with food and your walks and whatever? I'm like, dude, I don't have time for that right now. And, but don't worry, we'll catch up this week and I'll be back on it. And I was like giving you this little, and I remember getting the text message back and it was like, we're getting on tonight. And I said, okay. So I got on and we talked for 3 hours and that's not a coaching session. That's somebody who actually gives a rip about you as a person, and you were never judgmental. Not that any human being should be in that situation, but you had all the reason in the world to look at this and say, "What's wrong with you? You were making such good progress. Just get back on it." You didn't. You didn't understand all the pain I was walking through. You didn't understand what was going on with everything with work and family. But here's what you did. You said, "All right, let's do this, Will. We want to start getting some things going in the right direction for you. So just like at the beginning, let's not try to conquer all these things that we've added onto your routine. Let's just grab one thing. What do you think you're not doing that was so effective that you probably could do this week? Just really focus on it." I'm like, I haven't drank water or I haven't taken my walks. And I think you knew at that point that my time was valuable with my family. And he said, let's just choose your water. Let's get your water in there. Let's get your water, get your 90 ounces of water at the time. Get your 90 ounces of water in there and start keeping your food journals again. And let's talk next week and let's make that happen. And that was the beginning of recovery for me from getting dealt it. And I'll end the story by saying this, is that none of this really was predictable, except to say that this is life, right? And just like my dad died, the situations, you just don't anticipate them. But when you don't have somebody in your corner who's not emotionally dealing with the drama here, but just empathizing with you, that made all the difference to me being even here talking to you today, still doing my journey and more excited than ever about it. So I'll say thank you to you, because you created a safe place and you created a place where you knew how much to push me and how to get me back on there. And if most coaches are watching their watch and you're listening and you're hearing for cues and you're asking the right questions. So thank you for letting me go on with that story. I just wanted people to hear that's real.
I appreciate that, and it chokes me up a little bit because it makes I'm happy that I'm able to have an impact, and that's probably the most important thing for me. We have been talking for 45 minutes, but let's one of the things that I know that I know would help kind of wrap this up would be kind of getting inside the mind of the first time for you, like what would have been if you now, the Will today, was able to have a conversation with the Will of when you first started, and even like weeks before you ever started with me, like what would be the conversation? What would you whisper in your ear and say to yourself and be like, to kind of set you on the right path?
Knowing what I know now.
Knowing what you know now.
Yeah. I mean, the very first thing I'd whisper in my ear is, this guy's going to change your life, right? I mean, literally, this guy is the real deal. And I'd say that, and I say it with all sincerity, this coaching relationship, not only have you made professionalism, but you have educated me and you've encouraged me and you've not let me off the hook, and you've never judged, and you've only executed with utmost professionalism. So I want people to hear that on this call more than anything. And I don't say that to pump you up more than just to be very honest and fair. So I'd whisper that in my ear. This is an important phone call to make. I think the other thing that I would whisper in the ear is no matter where you are, or what you think there's no way out here, and you're just waiting for 6 years till you die, or earlier. I thought there was no way out, that the alternative is to do nothing, and doing nothing is not doing nothing. It's like inflation. It's like putting your money under a mattress, right? You actually are deteriorating when you do nothing. So even if you're just doing a 20-minute walk, and that's 20 minutes more than you're doing every other day, that made a difference. So I would go back and I'd say, you don't need to conquer everything. You'll always have a starting place. So everyone's going to have their own, and that's where your customization, your ability to adapt to my experience, you to know what I'm expecting, and bring me to a point where I'd whisper in my ear, hey, you don't have to conquer Rome. You don't need to be Brad Pitt and lose 250 pounds by Christmas. Right. That wasn't it. And that made a difference. So that's what I want you viewers to hear too. You need a coach in your corner that is there for you and 1,000% behind you when you aren't mentally rational. And sometimes we're just not. And you need someone to be honest with you, and you need someone to create a safe place. And then you need to be vulnerable and be willing to commit. And part of the commitment isn't just jogging or lifting a weight or whatever, going to the gym 5 days a week. That's what I thought. But the commitment has a lot more to do with, hey, I commit to being honest and open. I want you to see the car, if you would, to your earlier metaphor. So those are the things I would say to myself: is there's a way out, but there is the bad choice is doing nothing, because that's deteriorating. So
yeah,
that's what I would whisper. I mean, it was the best coaching decision of my life. It literally has changed the way I view everything, the way I view what goes in my mouth, the inventory that I take. Everything has changed from inside out. And I'm really grateful, man. Thanks.
I appreciate that, and I'm grateful to have had the opportunity to work with you and meet you and get to know you. So we should I think we can wrap it up there, Will, because I think this is really fantastic, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do this and talk about the coaching and talk about what you've gone through and your experiences, and and every good and bad, and being vulnerable with us and letting us have kind of a peek through the window into your life and what your experiences have been like. So thanks for taking the time, and I appreciate this.
Yeah, and I think can I just say this last thing, because I don't think it came out, is I thought the right gadgets would work, and I thought the right apps might work, and I thought the right program PDF guide would work. I thought that would all work. Yeah. But I knew for sure that you'd have me in the gym. I think it'd be pretty funny to tell your viewers this, but I have not once stepped foot in the gym. This entire weight loss journey and health has happened with Rob educating me on what food does to me, and me, who's one of the pickiest fast food, Taco Bell loving, Big Mac eating dudes
Dunkin'
ever.
Donuts.
Yeah, Dunkin' Donuts, right? I mean, whoa, they're like sending me get well cards. Where are you? But the deal here is, I have seriously changed the way I view things, and so I did not step in the gym one time. Not one single time. I have not run any marathons. I have simply modified one thing on top of the other. And once you've made me understand how food works and what it does to me, you've allowed me to make the adjustments to what I'm willing to try. And then I've asked you for counsel, like, what could I do here? And you gave me some thoughts. But I think it's important for people to hear that, because it's not what you probably expect. There's a way out, and it doesn't have to be what everyone is pushing on TV. You need a coach. You need someone who knows what they're doing and how a body actually works, and then that can customize it to you. And not once have I gone to the gym, and that still blows my mind to say that to this day. So Thanks again for having me just on, and I would just encourage I'm just gonna say it. I was pushing you to get your coaching program out there because I said, dude, I've not seen anything like this before, and I work with coaches. You are a star, and people would be they probably hear you on your podcast and they know you as well, but I know you now really well, and it's the best decision I made, and I'm not stopping. I'm not near my goal yet, but I'm keep going.
You're the best, Will. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You got it, bud. Thanks.